Hey guys, welcome back to the Mind Body broadcast with Austin and Marty. And today we have a fun one for you. This might end up being a two-parter. We'll see how it goes, but we want to talk about some hacks. And by hacks we mean um, things that may help you with hunger or adherence to your plan, or save you time, or save you money. Anything to make your life easier, more practical, or more efficient, to help you towards your goals. So we're going to talk about all kinds of good stuff. I have a feeling it may end up being a two-parter because I'm going to think of a bunch of extra stuff that I missed
Hmm.
here. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, there's just so many little things like we were just talking before we started recording here that we've learned over the years. Like you were even talking about on your other podcast there with Joe about you just rambled on and on about stuff, but it's stuff that we take for granted, I think. Like I was telling, like I'll start off with my first one here. My client Ryan sent me a photo of Guy's barbecue sauce and said, "Man, this stuff's amazing." And I was like, I've been using that for years and years, and even like I do have it on my and I've on like my form how I use to check in with my clients. I've got a food substitution sheet and then like a little tiny list of extra hacks like that. And so it's just yeah, we so that's the one of the first ones called Guy's barbecue sauce. And I think it's got 1 carb per tablespoon, whereas what's I know ketchup's 5 carbs per like squirt or tablespoon. But like barbecue sauces can get up there, man. If they put the fancy sugars and stuff in there, I've seen like some ten carb per squirt. Like and that's probably what would you say one of the bigger wreckers of nutrition plans is condiments or sauces because like I'm this so vividly I remember being out at a restaurant and it said salmon, like maple salmon, and I was like okay, and it had the macronutrients listed right next to it, and it said like 25 or 30 grams of protein, like 20 fat, 50 carbs, and I was like what? But that's how much friggin' maple glaze they used because obviously, if you don't know, there's no carbs in salmon at all. But that they literally made it the predominant macronutrient just by the friggin' extra sauce on there, and I was blown away. And so like I ordered it and I said, "Can I have half the sauce, please?" Or like sauce on the side type of thing. So there we go. Like I'm already thinking of extra hacks, right? Like if you go to a restaurant and you're ordering something, ask for sauce on the side or ask for half the sauce or something like that because man, can that stuff ever add up quickly and you'll blow. So let's say I had 4 meals that day of maple glazed salmon. So there's an extra 200 grams of carbs added into my diet. That's more than most people have ever used, for God's sake, right?
Oh yeah, it's easy to do at restaurants. I mean, if you're just talking solely restaurant wise, that's probably what jacks up the calorie count of everything, really. It's just, you know, preparation. And of course, they want it to taste a certain way, but yeah, asking for sauce on the side, asking for half the sauce or light sauce, I think it's still going to taste the same. It's just, it's not like dripping, and,
Yeah.
it's, but yeah, that stuff does add up. But the barbecue sauce, we have, Hughes has a picture of a little guy on the front. That's the one that people use a lot here. Real similar. It's like 1 to 2 carbs,
Okay.
depending on. So, and there's different flavors. So that's kind of the popular one here. Of course, you have all the Walden stuff. I mean, most people know about Waldens now, and now some of it's hit or miss. And of course, like everyone's palate is different, right?
Yes.
Some of the stuff, like some of the people are like, oh yeah, I really like that. Somebody else might not. And of course, it also depends on how hungry you are because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff tastes better when you're really hungry, so
Oh
you
God.
might find something that you really like on 1,500 calories that you probably don't want to eat on 4,000 calories. So, you know,
Well, there's go ahead. Sorry.
no, that's it. You're fine.
So that's the thing too is that I noticed and I looked into like palate and whatever. So I remember so vividly at being at the movies one time and buying a bag of Skittles and a thing of Diet Pop. Now, as soon as you have sugar and then you have any kind of artificial sweetener, that artificial sweetener is not gonna overpower the taste buds of the sugar. So like that Diet Pop tasted like it could have been the most. I could have used tons of flavoring in that Diet Pop and it'd be artificial, and it just didn't do anything because I had the sweetness of the Skittles, right? And so that's leading into exactly what you just talked about with the 4,000 calorie diet. Because if you're having something like, even if you have carbs in your diet, and then you have like, let's say you're doing some form of keto, or you're doing lower sweeter things, and you have an artificial sweetener, that's going to blow you away way more than if you were to have a meal that's containing anything sweet in it at all. Like, it's just, that's one of the, I just noticed it's almost like you're ruining the taste of it. So like for the diet pop stuff too, that leads into the next one here, is that there is so much, and I've posted about this, you've posted about this. You see it. I want to say minimum weekly that I see a post about diet pop, and of course there's the zealots, and it's not coming down on people that think think it's bad for you and things like that. It's just fully educate yourself, as opposed to just hearing from your grandma that diet pop is bad for you. Now, the whole, just like the Walden's Farm stuff, just like was that Hughes with a like Hughes, like, is that someone's name, G Hughes?
Yeah, I assume whoever the little dude is on the front of it, that's probably him.
That's him. Yeah, it's like that Guy Fieri's or Guy Fiero's or whatever stuff. Like, he's got his name on face. Okay, cool. I've never heard of that one, so that might be something that's newer. See, there you go. Now I'm already learning on here too, right? But so regardless of that, it's like, just educate yourself on that, in terms of its moderation will be everything with this stuff. If you are now, I think it was one of my buddies that said, don't make the condiment its own food group. And man, did that ever ring a bell with me. It's like, you can get the no calorie salad dressing, you can get the no calorie barbecue sauce. There's even a really good, like, Heinz even now has the no sugar added, which should also say low carb ketchup on there, and that's also 1 gram per 1 gram of carb per serving, as opposed to 5 grams. And it's more of a vinegar based one. But if you now are using enough that, like, you're covering your vegetables or covering your whatever, like, I know at one point when I was doing one of my preps, I was using so much of the what is it, the maple syrup Walden's Farms in my oatmeal, that, like, it just got to be too much. I was going through a bottle way too quickly, and I had to back it up. So yeah, because you can overdo stuff, and then you want to talk about gut health, and you want to talk about it hurting you. It's not going to cause, we'll say, health problems. I'm using air quotes here, and you can't see it, but you know what I mean. But it will start to, like, your guts don't really enjoy the living heck out of that stuff. It's not going to digest it correctly. You're going to get farty. You're going to get bloated. It's just not kind of what you really want to be ingesting too much of. But it can save you, especially if you're a sugaraholic or anything like that. A little bit of that stuff, especially like you said, when you're on 1,500 calories, it's going to taste different, and it's going to taste better. It's just going to make you be sane, as opposed to having to make it through your day. And if you're starting to hate food, man, is that a bad space to be in at any point in your prep, really. Like, if like, let's say it hits at 8 weeks out, and you are eating food that you know is good for you or is the best for you, and you're just starting to be like, FML, I don't want to eat this anymore. Some of this stuff can really save you. Yeah, and I would drop something. Sorry about that. I would put a little caveat in there too, is obviously the digestion aspect. If it's beginning to upset your digestion, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to not think that there's something else, because I see that all the time, and they don't want to give it up or lower the amount. You got to make sure you do. And the other would be, you do have some people that, if you get something if they're very restricted on their diet, especially the leaner you get, the further away from that set point you get, the lower your calories get, you are susceptible to those ultra palatable foods. So, I mean, just be weary of that too. Some of that stuff can trigger people and overconsumption. Good. I'm glad you're talking about this. Keep going. Yep. So while it can be awesome, it can also just, if you notice that's happening, then that's a no. Don't buy it. Get rid of it. Don't use it. Whatever. So you just got to make sure that you keep that in mind as well. Yeah. No, that's the next topic that I was going to bring up anyway, is the having things in the house, right? Like if you know that you're going to demolish milk, you're going to demolish Skittles, pick your poison type of thing, and you're trying to embark upon a better meal plan, or you're trying to get more healthy, or you're trying to lose weight, or whatever it is, if you have that staring at you in the face and you've got those weak moments where, like, Austin's deep into prep now, he's not even 2 weeks out, and he opens up the fridge and there's every friggin' thing that he likes and thinks is delicious, or like we'll call it a trigger food, and it's in there, and he's at 2 a.m. and he's just you just might have that weak moment. You grab it, and before you know it, you wake up on the couch in a food coma, and you're like, "Oh my god, what the hell just happened?" So just keep. Oh, it's happened to me 100%. I'm like, so there's my story. Is before my second show, I forget what I had in there, because I had refeed foods for the next day, and that was 2-3 in the morning. I don't know when it was. I woke up and just I saw it on the counter, and I was 3/4 asleep. And just before you know, and that did it. Like, and I ate a bunch, and then, man, did I sleep good? But I woke up and was like, oh damn! And it was John Meadows was my coach at the time. I emailed him, and he just burst out laughing. He goes, you know what, man, just you already started the refeed, cool. Like, it's a couple hours into it now, and just because it happens. It was the first time I was so diligent. It might have been 2 weeks out. And like, I was so guilty and everything. I was like, so now for myself, I know if I have a refeed day or a cheat day or whatever, I go out that day and get it then, because now I'm smart enough to know that I have, like, we're coaches. We know that. How do you think we know how to educate all you people on this stuff? Because we've been washed up and through the ringer ourselves. Like, we're not infallible. We haven't been eating oatmeal and eggs since 3 years old and haven't ever had a bag of Skittles in the middle of the night type of thing, right? It's just it's a self-awareness thing, right? But yeah, you want to talk about triggering, is that if you have some of the artificial sweetener, you have anything kind of along those lines, and now before you know it, you're either A, using too much, or B, now you're seeking out and you start dreaming or thinking too much about those foods, then yeah, that's you like you said, just don't even bring it home, or buy yourself a case of pop for the week, or a 2 liter of pop, or what do you guys, if it's not in, like, what do you, when you guys buy like a big bottle of Diet Coke, like, is it like, it doesn't come in gallons, what's it come in there?
Okay, so it is in liters, actually, which is odd, obviously, since we
That's awesome. I was wondering that, because like, you know, people would say I want 2 gallons of water during peak week, but then I was wondering, what do they do with pop? So that's really funny. Good.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why. Maybe I couldn't tell you, because I would think a lot of them, like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, are probably American companies anyhow. So I don't know. Doesn't make any sense.
I can't see them being a Canadian company. I really can't. So, because like, I was wondering that, because I know like I think a gallon's what, 3.84 liters or something along those lines. And I know like the milk jugs and the water jugs are I don't know if they changed the size of them, but if they had to change the 2 liter pop size to 2.2 liters, that's just going to be a manufacturing nightmare. So that makes sense that they keep it all the same and just put one, like for Canada, they put the French label on, and for the US, they don't put the French label on. Like, there you go, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So since we're talking about, there's a couple other little things I think
go for it,
that tie right into this too, is you have the hacks for like food volume. If you're counting macros and you want to have a larger meal. Now, here's another thing with this, is that this also gets people into trouble. Is you get people that literally their main goal is to see how freaking big they can make a meal within their macro parameters, which isn't always the best thing, not only from a digestive standpoint, but also from a hunger standpoint, because now you're throwing these satiety signals that are already all funky. Mm-hmm. Now you're throwing them off even further, because calorically the meal does not match the fact that it weighs 2.5 pounds.
Yes.
So that's when we talk about this stuff too. That's another thing. Like, you're treading a fine line. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a little more voluminous in your meals. Like, I get that totally. And I do it myself, but I also know like kind of where my limit is if it starts messing with my head a little bit. So, something to be aware of. But yeah, so right now, cause I'm kind of at that state. Well, I'm very much at that stage. There's some things that I would like to do. Of course, the easy ones like, eat more vegetables. But again, that's not always good for people either, just from digestion upset, obviously. But yeah, a couple other little things to do. Like I'll include things like sugar-free jello.
Right. That's perfect one. Yep.
Yeah, that's an easy one. You can, and I do count those in the macros. They're 1 gram of protein per cup. So, count them pretty easy.
There you go. Just have 30 of those and there's your protein meal, right?
Yeah, you could. Yeah. Although
I wouldn't recommend that in terms of volume, but like if you happen to have 30 of them, there's the protein, right?
Right. Technically, yes. I could do that, I suppose. Might have to give it a shot. I'll let you know how it goes.
Your brain's just swimming now. You're going, damn, I think I've got 30 of those in the cupboard. Yeah.
I do like, I don't really get into going real crazy with doing like the protein fluffs and stuff where I'm adding Guar gum or Xanthan gum and things like that. That's where people get into trouble.
Yes.
That stuff will wreck your stomach and it does not take much. So I don't really like suggesting those things, but I will do the jello. I will include normally right now, like once a day, I'll do are you familiar with like the Miracle noodles or Miracle rice?
Oh yes. Like, yeah. Yes.
So I'll do that. It's a fiber based, it's konjac fiber. Most of them are konjac fiber based. It's just pure fiber. They're pretty much tasteless, so you can just add them to whatever and make them taste like whatever you want. So you can get those on Amazon pretty easy. But they are a soluble fiber. So if you have, if you eat like 3 bags in a meal, that's going to pull a lot of water into your GI tract. You're going to get stomach upset. So again, just be careful with that stuff. But I can do 1 bag with a meal. Like if I want to supplement a meal, I have a meat, a protein, a vegetable, and now I can have a quote unquote rice with the meal. You know what I mean? So that doesn't bother me at all. I do fine with that. And then, I'm not doing anything else weird. I do notice that I will eat a lot more egg white towards the end of prep. Just
me too, buddy. Me too. The volume. I get you. Yep.
Yeah, you get, unless like you're somebody that has problems with like the high sulfur content and you're just farting all the time and you stink, you might want to cut. You might want to cut that back, but that is egg whites. You get way more volume with egg whites than you do with any meat source. And they're virtually macro free calorie, virtually carb and fat free other than just your protein. So, you do those. I'm trying to think of what else I do like food wise, actually with meals. I will occasionally
your popsicles there too.
Well, yeah, I'll throw that in there. Since that wasn't like technically food, but I'll tell you what I do like is I really enjoy if I want something snacky or crunchy. I really like pork rinds, and what I'll do is I found a couple brands that actually offer baked pork rinds so I can even squeeze out less fat in there. And the nice thing about those is if you get the right brands, they're huge, like they're huge and puffy. So you can eat, like the whole bag, and I can put that right in the meal. So I'll do those. I'll do those quite often. They're delicious, especially when you're used to eating all kinds of boring stuff. So those are good. And then, you mentioned the popsicle. So it's like between meals, there's things you can do. We've mentioned diet soda. I do calorie-free popsicles, and those are literally the simplest thing to bake. You take drink mix, some kind of liquid drink mix. Here, the name brand is Mio. You guys have Mio?
Yep, absolutely. That's one of my go-tos, man. I love that.
Yeah, you could use whatever brand. Like most of the grocery stores here have like a generic store brand or whatever.
I think Walmart's got their own brand or something like that too, right?
Yep. I tell you, the easiest way to do them is I'll take a bottle, like a 16-ounce bottle of water or a shaker cup even, and just fill it up with water. Okay. I'll I'll add the drink mix to my preferred, concentration, whatever tastes good to me. I'll take the little popsicle makers that I get off Amazon. I'll pour them in and freeze them. And that's it. And I like to do the rubber, like these rubbery popsicle makers too, because they're much easier to get out. Whereas the plastic ones, like sometimes when they get cold, they'll break and shatter.
Yes.
Just do these, get the pack of the rubber popsicle makers, mix up your drink mix, pour it into a bunch of them, throw it in your freezer. You're good to go. And they are freaking delicious. And no joke, I'll do like 3 or 4 of them between each meal, because really that's only like half a bottle of water.
Yeah.
It's not that much. But it takes me forever to eat them because they're, frozen, and I can sit there and get all the flavor out of them. So that's an awesome one. I love that. My wife laughed because she got me like a million of them. I have like this gallon, 3.8 liter bag of rubber popsicle makers in my little pan. And those are my prep. That's my prep stash. So,
go ahead. Sorry. Yep.
I'd say probably my last other one. I do a couple other little things, but probably my last other like food or liquid related one would be decaf iced coffees. I do those.
Sure. Okay. Yep.
Easiest way to do that: take a bottle. I use a shaker cup or like one of those big mouth, like wide mouth bottles if I want a more liquid. Instant decaf coffee, water, and I use I'll use like the 0-calorie syrups. There's a ton of them. We have probably 10 different brands. I get them on Amazon because they're a lot cheaper, but I use this skinny syrup is what it's called. And I like the caramel flavor. Toss it in there. If I want a little stevia, I can use that. I don't have to. Shake it up. Man, it is delicious. And the coffee helps blunt the hunger. So, that's an easy one.
Well, so even with the popsicles and everything, that's adding to your hydration, especially if people are getting sick of slugging down water. Would you want to have some popsicles? Sure thing. So there you go. You have, like you said, 250, 500 milliliters or whatever of popsicle, which is directly translated into water, and there you go. Because how many times have you heard that? Like, it's just, I don't know how to get my water in, or I forget my waters. But like when you're hungry, there you go. Like in the coffee, like and that's one of the tidbits too, is that I still will get here and there. People think that coffee does not count towards hydration. Now it doesn't fully. I forget where the research was. It was years ago that I read it, but it's something like at least 2/3, maybe even 3/4 of like the coffee does count towards hydration. Sure. Caffeine is like a natural diuretic or whatever, but you can't just have, like, for instance, someone's blowing over their water and they're having, let's say, 5 coffees a day or whatever like that, and they're 500 milliliters each. Like, no, that does count towards your hydration. So that's easier ways to kind of sneak it in there too. I have written down here, like, even when you were talking about like the satiety, things like that, like the science behind it is that I think as soon as you have something sweet or a carbohydrate in your as soon as you start eating it, you start salivating 30% more than if you would with a protein or a fat. So that will increase, obviously, hunger levels, and so you'll start salivating more, and you'll start swallowing more, and you'll want to have more. So it's just something to be aware of, that if you're going to have any of those really, really hyper sweet things, that you might spike your hunger for a bit there too. So because that's one of the last things you need, is to be spiking your hunger at times that you really shouldn't be. And then even when you were talking about the coffees there too, what's another one of those, we'll call them prep or even diet killers, is coffee. Like, my gosh, people get large triples with that creamer and the sugar. That can add up like no one's business. My story about that is I had a client, and she was not losing weight for the life of her. And I think we had her at 1,800 calories, and she was gaining weight. And I was like, okay. So then we dropped it to 16, dropped it to 14, dropped it to 1,200, and nothing was happening. I was being mind blown at what was going on. I'm like, are you kidding? And she was a bigger girl. She was taller. She was weight training 4 times a week. And it's like, I'm scratching my head about this. And this is when I was still personal training at the time. And she walks into the gym with a coffee cup in her hand. And I said, hey, what's in that? And she's like, oh, it was a this. And I went on my phone, looked it up. 420 calories per coffee, or whatever the heck it was, some kind of latte or whatever. And I was like, how many do you have of those a day? She's like, oh, about 2 or 3. She was a nurse, need to keep her awake or whatever. And so we added it up. So there you go. There was 1,600 extra calories on top of the 1,600 already, 3,200 calories. No wonder she wasn't losing any weight. And so those are the, like, we as coaches and whatever take that for granted, but there is, people just don't quite grasp that, or they don't think too much of it, or they just, that's part of their routines, right? They wake up, they go to the local coffee shop, Starbucks, wherever, and they get this coffee, and then they don't realize just what's all included in that. So Walden's Farms put out, like you said, they're hit or miss, and I could not agree with you more. Some of the barbecue sauces I've tried, or the ketchup's awful. I can't stand the Walden's Farms ketchup. But they have these newer coffee creamers, and they're apparently, like, I'm not a coffee person, but my clients are like, this is friggin' delicious, and like they find it's like it's a direct replacement for their creamer or or anything. So that's also another little hack there, is to, it's like, I bet you even that would taste a little bit decent inside of your, like you said, you use that skinny syrup. I've never heard of that one. That's a great, I made a list here already of stuff here that I can include for everybody else, but you just add that to that iced coffee. Like, that's a genius trick, right? Especially if you are a coffee person, you don't need to take coffee out, like, because especially if that's you're a coffee addict. And so I had another client too named Rod, and I swear to God, I think he said he had 2 or 3 pots of coffee in the morning. He was doing his own form of intermittent fasting, and I was like, 2 or 3 pots? I'm like, what do you put in that? And he just kind of smiled, and I was like, so where I'm going with this is that if I take that away from someone, and they've been having this their whole life, like I think Dew was 42, 45, owned some shops or whatever, and now he was drinking, and I take that away from him, there's no way he's going to adhere to that plan. And it's just like, to a more of an extreme, it's like an alcoholic. Like, if you were having 8 beers a day, just making numbers up out of my head, and I take you down to none, not only is that unhealthy, but there's no way you're going to adhere to that. It's like, like, for instance, I haven't had this happen, I'm just pulling it out of my ass here, but if they're having 8 beer a day, go down to 6. Then the next week, go down to 4. It's just like that, because it's picking the worst thing that you're doing and making it better. Especially if you're going from nothing to overhauling your plan entirely. That's something so simple as just make yourself a food journal, and then either with your coach or by yourself, go take a look at the macronutrients, go take a look at the calories, and see what is destroying my plan the most, and to just make it better. Because not everybody can go cold turkey, and because that's freaking hard. Like, I know, for instance, for the beer, they literally do have in the fridge at hospitals beer for alcoholics. Because if someone's severely alcoholic and they've been doing this for years, and you cut them off, the amount of damage that can have, like, it can result in death. I know it's an extreme, but so it's funny. They're like there'll be Budweiser next to the insulin in the fridge. It's just because that's how damaging that can be. So you gotta watch out for that.
Yep, 100%. That's it's a valid point. We got to do our gum hack.
Yes, go for it.
So not sugar-free gum. That's not what I mean, but that is one that people do, though. There you go. There's certainly one that people can have some overkill with. So yeah, don't go from chewing no gum to 3 packs of gum a day. That's you'd think it's common sense, but man, happens a lot. So be wary of that one. But yeah, the nicotine gum. So I posted something about this the other day about, it actually wasn't about using it for appetite suppression. It was using it as a stimulant because it's a very short acting stimulant compared to caffeine. So it would be like an alternative to caffeine if you train later in the day. And of course, a lot of people are like, well, addiction and yada, yada, yada. And full disclaimer, hey, nicotine is a highly addictive substance. If you're previously a smoker, then, probably you shouldn't use it. Dosing wise, the effective dose is normally, most people do maybe 1 milligram. Maybe I know some people will do 2, but most people don't need 2 at a time. So at that 1 to 2 milligram dose, that's roughly maybe what you would absorb from 1 cigarette, probably a little bit less. So that's kind of, take that into account. People that are addicted to smoking don't smoke 1 cigarette a day ever. Mm-hmm. So, there you go. I figured I should put that in there so no one gets mad at me. But
yep.
But yeah, nicotine's an awesome appetite suppressant. I've used it pretty much in every prep for as long as I can remember, and never had any issues with like the whole addiction thing. And in fact, stimulants in general, anything that messes with neurotransmitters like that, especially dopamine, it has potential for addiction or dependency. Caffeine, million people don't think of it, but how many people? Tons of people are addicted to caffeine. Come on.
Oh gosh,
let's
yes.
be honest. So it's not like, so you got to take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But yeah, normally, like I said, I would always tell people start pretty small, maybe 1 milligram at most. And that's normally enough. Don't go buy like the 4 to 8 milligram pieces and chew the whole thing, or you will get super lightheaded. I know people like throw up and
their stomach starts hurting. Yep.
Like all kinds of shit. So yeah, maybe start at 1 milligram. If you don't like the taste, like sometimes I'll do in 1 milligram, it's such a little tiny bit that I'll do like a piece of sugar-free gum with it, and just chew it together. Mm-hmm. And so I'll do that. It'll typically tingle in your mouth, so you can let it tingle. Then you can put it in your cheek for a minute and rotate back and forth if you want. You don't have to, but you can do it that way. But that's pretty much it. But yeah, keep in mind it is a stimulant, so don't like sit there and chew it in bed at night. That's not a good idea. But also, right? Yeah, I do get that. Hey, can I use nicotine gum at night? Because that's when I have cravings. I'm like, well, no, that's not really a good option. But during the day between meals, yeah, it works. Works beautifully.
Yeah, that's the best time to have it there is in between meals, right? Like I will. Like, you don't need to use a clock or whatever, but if you're scheduling your meals, let's say you eat at 9, 12, 3 or whatever, then having it an hour and a half, like in between, that's perfect. Especially if you're, when you're about to get hungry, it'll give you, like, what would you, like, I would say if I use a piece, I probably get an hour and a half of, like, subdued hunger. Would you say that's kind of around how much you find out of it?
Yeah, I think the half-life of it, because I posted that on there, is about 1 to 2 hours. Everyone metabolizes things different. So there you go. It's going to be, you hit that hour mark, it's going to be starting to fade probably.
But you got to think though, right? Like you have 2 or 3 pieces a day. There's 3 hours you get of, we'll say, prep saving hunger squashing. Like that's like that's why I said these little hacks now. Do you need nicotine gum in the off season? Of course not. But and then that's how to cycle them or whatever. Same thing. Like I'm such a big fan of, I call it either pre-workout or caffeine cycling. And it's like people forget, and I mean this, and they forget that your food gives you the energy. Caffeine is not the energy, because how many people do you know that like that's what they associate it with? Like, if I don't have my coffee, I'm not going to have energy. It's like, well, what are you eating? Right? So like, deep into the off season. Yeah, well, exactly. It is deep into the off season. Like the food should be doing the powerhouse of your energy. And not only that, but then your adrenal glands are just going to be burnt out. And you're going to need more caffeine, because it's one of those compounding things that when you use it, you're going to need more the next time. You're going to need more the next time. So but yeah, so I like to tell people to save up their caffeine for like a dieting phase, because A, then it will work. B, your adrenals aren't being hammered. C, your sleep's going to get better. It's just the way to kind of make things work a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about that in the Are You Ready to Prep episode, but that would be one of the priming things. You shouldn't be going into a prep, guzzling down 600 milligrams of caffeine every day already.
Oh God! And then people will then it's one of those things. I think I have kind of a rule that's, if you're starting to use 2 scoops of pre-workout, especially if like the any of the newer ones that have a whole bunch of junk in there, they're the no calorie, no carb ones, and you're needing 2 scoops to get through your workout, and you've been doing this for months on end. That's like, it's gonna suck, but you got to take that break, or else, because you're just down such a terrible rabbit hole that, like, and I've been there, who hasn't, like, and I think it's a minimum of 5 hours. I like to say 6, just because people will do it anyway. But if you're having, like, especially if you're working out at night and you're going to the gym around 6, 6:37, wherever, and you're having a scoop of that pre-workout or 2 scoops, and you're trying to go to bed at like 10, that shit ain't going to happen. Like, and if it is, you are going to need something to put you to sleep, which that's a vicious cycle as it is, right? So absolutely.
That's what I mentioned in the post that I made.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And here's what happens too. I know it's like slightly off topic, but like might as well mention it. Is a lot of the time these people get such a tolerance that they're like, well, I can take it and still fall asleep. Yeah, but if there's caffeine present in your system, if you were to actually track your sleep, your deep sleep's going to be complete garbage. So you might fall asleep. That's fine. Just because you can have caffeine and fall asleep doesn't mean your sleep quality is any good. And I get that with people that are dependent on it all the time, and they're like, and then they don't realize that because they do sleep through the night or for the most part, and then when they take it out within a week, they're like, holy crap, my sleep quality is fantastic. Like I feel night in the morning. And so just kind of a side note, just because you can sleep doesn't mean the sleep's any good.
Anyone that's a client of mine knows that I'm such a sleep Nazi, in a sense that it's the more that I read on it, the more that it scares me how little sleep that we do get, the quality of sleep, because there's REM sleep, and I think it's like R.E.M sleep or E.R.E.M sleep or something like that, and just you need these phases. Like if you are getting it's 7 to 9, depending upon the person, is the direct research that's come out. There's a dude named Matthew Walker that put out this huge book. I think it was called Why We Sleep. I've sent the Joe Rogan podcast with him on it to so many people. It's a 2-hour podcast, but it will scare you and shock you if you listen to this podcast about how much sleep directly affects everything. And it's in like as soon as you get 6 hours of sleep and under, like how much it affects performance, like let alone alertness, but like power in the gym, recovery, it's silly. So if you're having anything at night that's an upper, we'll call it, you're actually asking for it. And people, cortisol will jack up. Like there's a bunch of stuff that goes on, but just in everyone, and that's when you liberate fat. It really is. In your sleep and you're resting, your body will let go of things. Like the amount of times that we haven't changed anything except for made sleep better, and before you know it, they're dropping fat, and it defies like calories in versus calories out or whatever. But you get that extra hour or even like 30 minutes, it can be mind blowing the differences it can make in your progress, even like off season too, like but pre-content, everything like that. You just get your damn sleep type of thing. I've got a couple extra things here for food prep that I kind of learned over the years that I have written down. When I was with Justin Harris as a coach, I call it Justin Harris chicken, because I remember I was getting so bored of chicken, and I said, what do you do? And he uses soy sauce and mustard as his kind of marinade or whatever. And then he was the one that introduced me years ago to, I call them chicken scissors. I know they're like kitchen scissors or whatever, but they're like the serrated scissors that you have in the kitchen, and you just take the chicken breast and you chop it up into bite-sized chunks. You put it in this mustard and soy sauce marinade overnight. Put it in the fridge, and then you actually fry it. You put it in the frying pan so it's soupy, and then by the time that the marinade is kind of cooked off or whatever, you have some completely different tasting chicken. And I'm telling you, mustard on a prep, especially if you're a mustard person or not, or like I love soy sauce, I love salty things like that. That was it changed everything. And you will get sick of it if you have too much, but just having those little tiny things like that, like that's a excellent one that I will still repeatedly use. Is definitely that. And even then, I know some people will go as far as buying like a meat grinder, so that they'll have their chicken breasts and then they'll put it through a meat grinder. It just makes it softer, doesn't make it as rubbery or whatever you kind of call it. So just that's something so easy to just introduce into your diet. Like you talked about the protein sludge or whatever, the puddings, just getting carried away with them can be a little bit of a bad thing. But using protein, like I'll put protein powder in my oatmeal. I'll use a little bit too much water and cook my oatmeal, and then I'll put protein powder in there so it doesn't become too hard or whatever. But there's your meal. There's something tasty, and then you can change the flavor of your oatmeal easily. You can use a chocolate protein powder. You can use a salted caramel protein powder. And then there you go. Now you have something that's voluminous, that's on plan, that's healthy for you, that can just fill you up and just be a complete game changer for your prep.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a million flavor hacks out there. And there's some good seasonings. Like I use a lot of especially in prep, a lot of the Flavor God seasonings.
What, man, did they ever change the game, didn't they? Wasn't that awesome?
Well, and it's good because you can actually taste the quality. Like they're good quality seasonings. Like they don't taste like this like refined processed garbage that you would buy in the store. And someone said, well, they're expensive. I said, no, actually not. Buy them because the bottles are huge.
Yes.
And so you're getting like 2 or 3 times the amount. So yeah, those are good. One thing that I like to do, and I don't do it with every meal, but and it gives the meal completely different flavors. I really like I like kind of like Asian-y type stuff. So, and a lot of Asian dishes have a sweetness to them, right? You teriyaki, sweet and spicy, whatever. And you miss that component of it. You can do spicy, but and it's literally this simple. You put whatever kind of spice on there you want, or even just like plain old Frank's Red Hot sauce. And I'll take a little bit of liquid stevia and put it on top. Sweet and spicy. Boom. Meal taste.
Ooh, okay.
The meal tastes entirely different. Literally, that is hands down my favorite meal flavor hack, and it makes shit taste amazing. So, I use it, or you can just use like any kind of sweetener, really. Like the Truvia works if you like if you don't like the stevia, like if that's too sweet for you or it's too bitter, you can do the Truvia, because that erythritol that they add in there kind of takes it smooths out the flavoring. Yes. And before anything, I posted about this the other day too, is that that erythritol is, because they asked, well, it says 2 carbs on the back of the packet, but it says 0 calories. Erythritol is about 0.2 calories per gram. Mm-hmm. So there you go. So it doesn't mean jack shit, really, unless you are like guzzling down bags of it. So, yeah, but man, that sweet and spicy, that's my jam. I'm
going to go out and get that today. I haven't thought about that in years. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's my jam. And and the cool thing about that is that if you take the sweetness and then you have like a hot sauce or something that you like, you can also change the flavor by the meal by changing the Flavor God seasoning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like I can make just endless combinations of that, because really what is one of the most palatable things, assuming that this isn't going to make you like binge or anything, one of the most palatable things together is sweet and savory.
Yes.
Right. That's why like carbs, that's why a super palatable dessert would have sugar and fat together.
Yeah.
So you can kind of replicate that with this. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I love that too. So like I will even put I'll use cinnamon with like that maple syrup on my oatmeal, and that's delicious. Cinnamon's another great like there's endless spices like you said, but cinnamon for me, it's just, that's it, man. Like, and it's, cinnamon's so good for you too. It's, the health benefits are there. So that's a real easy one to add to a lot of things. Like I'll use the ketchup Flavor Gods on my eggs, and that's an easy way to get like a lesser or nowhere calorie egg variation type of thing. Yeah, like, and they like in the Flavor Gods, like they just keep putting out new and better ones too. Like they have a ranch one. I was like, when they I was like, finally someone is putting these out. Like I don't even think they were aimed towards dieters or bodybuilding, but man, like I don't know why they don't have more sponsorships for people, just in terms of athletes or whatever, because I think they would sell even more, because that was huge. And then as we're talking there, I remembered one of my favorites. I think it's called Seal Sama or something like that, but it's a teriyaki sauce. And teriyaki is really, really hard to mimic without sugar. It's like, to find a really delicious strawberry protein flavor that's like no carbs, it's frigging hard. Like I remember Way Gourmet had a protein powder that was strawberry, and I was like, this is delicious. But then I flipped the container around, and yeah, it had 8 grams of carbs along with the 25 protein. I was like, oh, okay, no wonder it tastes so damn good. So these guys just have it. Yeah, seal salmon. It's got a picture of a seal on the front. I think it's like a blue and yellow label, and just, man, I really can't tell the difference between it and an actual sugar-based teriyaki sauce. So that's one of my go-tos for sure. Like teriyaki chicken, wow, just completely just add things up there too. But I'm thinking too now about my story about gum. You said that people like can get carried away. I remember she wasn't even my client at the time, but this was years ago, I think 2012. And I had a girl message me and say, I just came back from the doctor with like severe stomach pains. And I think she was like, wasn't quite at ulcer level yet, but was borderline at ulcer level. And she was like, my coach at the time isn't kind of educating me on this. Do you know of anything why? And I said, send me a food journal and whatever. And then she said she was having, I think, at least a minimum of a pack of gum a day, which is 12 pieces. I think it was one of those. Remember when they put out all those like desserts flavors of different ones? There was like lemon mango and strawberry. They were delicious, but they had like a gram or two of carbs too. So now that also was adding to her plan, 24 grams of carbs. But just it was screwing up, like, because like I said, you will start to you put something sweet in your mouth, you'll start to salivate. So that's actually tricking your body, because you're going to swallow more saliva into thinking, okay, I'm going to be ready to digest something. So it's going to keep your stomach acid levels up, and that was the problem. As soon as she took out, it took her about a good, I think, week or two of lowering the gum, but that brought her back from the point of doing something really, really damaging. And because I get it, like I've down more, like me and you have down more diet pop than probably your average person, and that's can get to the point of being problematic. However, you got to be so aware of this gum stuff. Any of that, like we've already talked about that moderation stuff, because I love hammering it home. But these can be prep savers, and they also can be prep or health destroyers, we'll call it. And just being so hyper aware of that stuff can be like health changing. Like that would be the last thing in the world you'd want. 2, 3, whatever weeks out, and now you borderline have an ulcer, and now you're like, wow, just then that's the reason why you got to pull out a prep.
Yeah, and it seems so silly, right? Because you're ruining your prep because of condiments and sweeteners and stuff like that. But hey, it does happen. It happens, a lot, definitely way more than it should. So yeah, you just have to kind of know your limits when it comes to those things in terms of digestion and triggers and all that jazz. So you just have to be honest with yourself, because sometimes that stuff tastes so good and it's helping you so much mentally that you just ignore the fact that it's hurting you physically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know we're sitting here preaching about how to not take in too many artificial sweeteners. Sounds ironic.
Oh, I know, right? Isn't it? But yeah, as much as you can get like you can get carried away. You can go. I have had clients go through a bottle a day, like the Walden's Farm. I'm trying to think of what they are, like 250, 500 milliliters, not quite 500, but they're there. And like if you start going, like just think about that volume, and that's going into your stomach every day along with whatever else, like just your intestines or whatever are just not going to digest that. It's going to be coating things. Like I think it was, man, I'm shouting out a lot of people here today, but I remember Ken Hill, Skip, he was talking about milk at one point, and it's not like, and yeah, we could get into the whole dairy debate if we want, but whatever. But he's like, like when you drink milk and you get that, like, and he called it scum, and oh my God, did I burst out laughing. You get that scum on your mouth, and like you can feel like gum, milk inside your mouth. It's like when what's it from Anchorman, when he buys milk when he's dehydrated, his milk was a bad choice, or whatever that famous line was. Like, yeah, because it's not the best choice if you're freaking thirsty, and then you're gonna get that scum. It's going to feel, he goes, that's what's coating your stomach, and that's also what's going into your digestive tract. So here's the hack behind dairy, is that it's you don't need stomach acid to digest dairy. Because what happens if you were to put vinegar in a Greek yogurt? It would coagulate. It would start doing really bad things. And the reason why I'm saying vinegar is because that's getting closer towards acidity versus a base. So like one of the worst things you could do would be like yogurt in a steak, just as an example. Because the steak will need stomach acid, but the yogurt or the dairy won't need stomach acid. And that's just, you want to talk about being farty and bloated? Holy crow, put that in there. And I remember I did so much research into dairy because it was just starting to become a problem for myself, let alone some clients too. And so 95% of people are some way, somehow lactose intolerant. And that's a real direct figure in terms of if between milk, between yogurt, between cheese, you pick it. Just our body loses these enzymes after infancy, I believe, or like I think it's once you reach toddler, 3 or 4 years old, your body just kind of gives that up because now you're not breastfeeding anymore, you're not needing milk, you just don't have the enzymes. Now there's that 5% they're lucky, they can down anything in there, they feel great and whatever, and that's excellent. But my whole point here is that it takes about 4-ish hours to clear dairy from the stomach. So if you were to have let's say a steak and rice for a meal, and then you were going to have cottage cheese, for example, and you were to have that 3 hours later or 2.5 hours later, you will probably run into some bloat or to some stomach issues, and your body will not enjoy that. So one of the hacks that I'll do is, if you are a dairy fanatic or you really like your cottage cheese or something, I say have it for the last meal of the day. So now at least you're having that full nights of sleep to be able to digest everything, to kind of get that, I'll say, out of the system in terms of that, and then be ready for something that needs more stomach acid. Because holy crow, the amount of people that will go about they don't want stomach acid and whatever. You need stomach acid to digest a lot of these foods. So ridding yourself of stomach acid all day perpetually, that's not good. And also keeping your stomach acid high all day is not good. Like, acid reflux is very real. That usually means you don't have enough stomach acid. So and so if you're having, let's say, lots of heartburn, acid reflux, and you're having dairy in your diet, that could be a sign to either pull it out or make a switch. And it's just, like the debate over dairy and if it's good or not. Like, yes, it can be good. Yes, you can use it in your diet, but I would not have a dairy-based prep. Can you imagine, like, you're having dairy at every meal? Like, it's just going to wreak some stomach havoc for sure.
I always thought you had cottage cheese in the last meal because of the casein, right? You got to stay anabolic.
Double whammy, though, right? You got to stay anabolic, man. You got to wake up at 6 hours later and be like, damn, I'm still building muscle.
Yeah, I was wrong. See, I learned something new every day.
That's right. Damn you, Austin, and telling your clients about the casein. Yeah, that's too funny. But yeah, talk about that. Talk about that, like that big myth, because some people might be listening to this and not have any idea what hell we're talking about.
Oh yeah, so the whole idea of needing the slow release protein at bedtime, yeah, it's ridiculous. So you don't need that. And the fact that here's the misconception in general is just digestion overlap. Like, if you eat every 2 hours, you are overlapping all day long.
Of course, there's food still in the stomach that from the last meal. Of course.
If you eat every 3 hours, you're still overlapping all day long. I mean, it's digestion overlap. It pretty much occurs all the time. And the thing is, people are like, well, I feel hungry. That doesn't mean that you still don't have some food present in the stomach. And even then, even if you don't, you still have a higher amino acid concentration in your blood from eating and stuff. So yeah, that's where the idea of like meal frequency and timing and release of proteins and all that stuff has been pretty much debunked. So yeah, it's not really something that's super relevant, but I do like what you said about the dairy. That's actually how I do it. I'll have,
sure.
I don't really like, if I have like a really processed dairy, like something like a very cheap processed dairy, I won't do good, but something like a cultured dairy source, like a high quality yogurt, or even like grass-fed cheese, like especially hard cheeses, because hard cheeses are typically tolerated better than soft cheeses, if anyone cares. I'll do it at night, usually before bed. Like right now I do Greek yogurt with like a little sludge or pudding type concoction at night. Don't have any digestive issues, good to go in the morning. So yeah, that's a great point.
It's one of those things too that if you have that dairy, because it usually, especially like I said, 95% lactose intolerance, whatever. Yes, you can buy the little bottles. Sometimes I'll have the Now brand dairy enzyme or whatever, and I find it does help here and there, especially if I know I'm going to have the dairy, especially the processed dairy. And I'll talk about that too, how you have the no fat cheese slices. Like, there you go. Like, I remember I got carried away putting too much of them. I think I was using 3 slices at one point on my egg whites at nighttime, and just before I went to bed, I'd start getting farty, bloated, and then of course it'd be gone by the morning, but my body didn't like that. You know what I mean? We could talk about the stomach bacteria, the gut microbiota, and the gut flora and stuff like that. And yes, that is important. So it's just, what did we say about the processed stuff? Like in terms of, well, actually we didn't talk about the processed stuff, but the artificial stuff. But if you have too much of the processed stuff, your body will not be happy with you. And so, and that's actually a hack that you can do at nighttime, is use the dairy. And because you might wake up, let's say you're going to wake up to piss 3 hours later, and you're still going to be technically a little bit more full because your body's still taking a little bit longer to break down the dairy. So as opposed to, let's say, if you use something that was hyper digestive for you, in terms of like, my body loves chicken and rice, whose doesn't? But then if I know I'm going to get hungrier quicker on that, so if I have that at nighttime and I wake up and now I'm super hungry in the middle of the night, I might have one of those episodes where Marty grabs a bag of Skittles before you know it, he's passed out with Skittles everywhere, and wakes up and slips on the Skittles going to the bathroom. And but yeah, it's just that's something that you can do, is not pick something that's not digestible, but pick something that's less digestible, so that, yeah, you can stay more full during the nighttime.
Yeah, of course. I mean, why wouldn't you want to? I mean, you don't want to like go to bed starving either. So that's fun.
So they're like, oh my, and there is still that floating around, Austin, the whole do not eat carbs past 6 p.m. or do not eat past 6 p.m. That was one of my biggest, I think I might average around 200 or 300 likes on my posts on Instagram, but this one got 700 likes and over 100 comments because I put up a picture of a yam at 7 a.m. and a picture of a yam at 7 p.m. and said, it's the same damn thing. And man, did that put people in a panty bunch, or they just put someone... They get mad. But there's nothing magic that happens if you stop eating at a certain time. Why? So why did that come out, ladies and gentlemen? Because it would stop people from eating, because they would be eating more at nighttime. If I take away your last meal of the day, I'm taking away calories. Ta-da! There's the big trick. Now you're eating 200 to 500 whatever calories less per day, and there it is. So going to bed hungry. And we'd already talked about sleep. That will mess up your sleep more so than anything. And there has been so much BS, straight up BS that I've read about. It's going to screw up your sleep. It's going to give you more energy at nighttime. No, what the trump card is, if you go to bed hungry, you are asking for it. Straight up 100% asking for it. And so I will try to aim for one of my last meals of the day to be around that 30 minutes to an hour right before bed, because that will save me. That won't make me have a bad sleep or be dreaming about food or something.
Yeah, so it's interesting because there was something I saw about melatonin production and eating, or mainly like carbohydrate, I believe it was.
Yep, that's what I thought. I saw that too. Go ahead. Yep.
It may have just been eating in general. I don't know, that actually that the meals could interrupt some of that from eating at bedtime. Now, I saw it, okay, but I have yet to see anyone that has really had issues with that at night. And it almost always, at least in my experience, translates into better sleep for the reasons that you mentioned. And so I don't know, you can take that with a grain of salt. I've never had anyone not eat before bedtime if they wanted to, because unless it really impacts them, it always seems to help people. So I definitely agree with you there. And there might be like the occasional person that does have like digestive issues, have acid reflux or something.
Yep, that's right.
Have a bunch in their stomach. If you are that person, then of course, back it up a little bit. You don't want to be like burping up acid in your mouth like when you're trying to go to bed. Yep. But other than that, yeah, well, I guess that would be a hack, right? I guess that could, we can include that hack.
For sure.
And it's and truthfully, if it's a matter of like meal timing, it's so much easier to fast for a little bit in the morning and push your meals later in the day.
Oh, yes. Well, how many, the classic, Austin, people work 9 to 5, whatever. And so boredom, hunger, cravings. When is it? The amount of people I know that have cravings in the morning outside of coffee is so minimal compared to the amount of people that have cravings at nighttime. And so you are setting yourself up for friggin' failure if you are robbing yourself of that at nighttime. Like, No, like I don't know if we've done a podcast on intermittent fasting. Maybe we did. Like we've done so many awesome podcasts now, but it's like that goes into the whole too. Like I haven't eaten, meal timing, gonna break down muscle, whatever. No. You can fast. Your body's gonna make it. You'll be okay. But I've preferred that for myself so much to wake up, have my probiotic and water, and just coast for as long as I can. Sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3, sometimes it's 4, and then have the rest of my meals after that. Absolutely, because it's like you said, that's way easier to do than that. Now I've got my sleep. I'm not waking up. I'm not waking up in the middle of the night hungry, and then I get to have food at nighttime. Like even though yes, I don't have a classical job, so I can get hungry kind of whenever. But especially for people that have we'll say your regular jobs or whatever, they want to have they have a significant other, they have kids, whatever, at nighttime, and that's when you have food. And now you got to be that person that says, oh no, I can't, I'm following my no food past 6 p.m. diet plan. Give me a break.
You know what's funny about fasting is, and we can kind of end it on this note, but
yep, sure.
Is anyone that does intermittent fasting or any kind of extended fasting in the morning, the hunger does come in waves. Like you'll get waves of hunger and then they go away and but it's pretty manageable. But what almost always happens is you're hungry as soon as you start eating. The rest of the day, you're hungry.
Yep. Like it kicks it in. Your body finally goes, oh, okay, thank God. Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Could not possibly agree more. Like, well, if anything, too, I find for myself, let's say I wake up at 8, and then I get hungry by around 10:30, and then if I wait another 30 minutes, the hunger goes away. It's like my body goes, oh, okay, that bastard's not giving me anything yet, so I'll just wait a little bit longer. But yes, and then as soon as you do eat, your body's like, okay, great, and then ghrelin, I don't know the exact mechanism that kicks in, but yep, exactly. Then, but also your body's so damn habitual that if you eat at every day at noon, and I were to not eat at noon, my body is gonna fight me like crazy. So you just keep thinking, damn, especially during prep, become a robot. There's your hack, is become a robot. Eat at 12, 2:30, 4, 5, whatever, because then it's a system, it's routine, your body enjoys it. It's like going to bed at the same time. Like there's your, that's not only, we'll say prep hacks, but those are life hacks, is the more that, especially for, and you're trying to, off season or prep, your body loves routine. It loves consistency, and it will rebel against you, man, if you try to change that too much.
Yeah, that goes for, like, when I talk about sleep with my clients, a consistent sleep-wake cycle is super important.
Yep.
So it's why shift work, I mean, unfortunately, some people have to do it, but it's awful for you. I mean, you can, from a circadian balance standpoint, it's terrible. It's awful. But yeah, I definitely agree. Wake up, go to bed, and eat at the same times.
Yeah. Well, even training time. Like if you work out every day at 1 p.m. in the afternoon and you switch that around, you will have less power. You'll be less motivated in a sense because your body is going to go, where's the workout? They did direct science and research on studying in schools. I know we said we were going to end it on this. Like I've got more things that we can add to the next one too. I'm even thinking of some, but we'll cut it off here, or you can kind of give your opinions on this too. But for school, you have the same classroom. And if you go to the same classroom and you read and you learn in that classroom, they did direct, I don't forget how many studies it was, but then if you wrote the exam in that same room, I think it was something like a 10% increase in marks on the exams versus if you wrote in a different building or a different room, because your body will you associate it with chemistry class. Because then you go in and now all like you remember the professor writing the thing on the board. They remember, so and that's just literally proving how much our bodies and brains love that routine or that consistency. Like that was mind blowing when I of course I read this after I was done university, and then I looked back to whenever, because I would always have them, they would set up in my university exams in the gym, and it was just so awkward because now I'm in a gym, I'm not associating the gym with chemistry, but then I had some classes where it was overflowed. I was in like a niche, like especially in my third year, and then we wrote them in the same classroom, and I look back and yeah, I did do better. Like it was science proving itself all over again. Is that that's going to happen.
Home field advantage.
Oh, see, like that's exactly it. How badly do you want Game 7 or your home? Like even my football games, I remember that, having it at my field, playing football. You have the crowd there, whatever. So that's just proving it time and time over. That good for you?
Yeah, man, I'm good. I'm ready.
Perfect. Well, that was great. Austin came up with this idea as per usual, so we'll have a chat about getting the next ones there for you. But yeah, so there was some. I think, man, like I wrote down so much stuff here. This is great for those. I'm gonna definitely look into those skinny syrups. I'm gonna look into that stevia and the hot sauce. Like the damn man, what a great idea. So from Austin and Marty here at the Mind Body Broadcast, we'll catch you next time.